This is the first beer we ever made at Buckle Down. So back in this late November 2013, I'm sweating it out with our first brew, and it was Belt and Suspenders. This is still our flagship beer, American IPA, what I would call like a Midwest IPA. So when we first brewed this beer, coming into starting Buckle Down, IPAs were a little different. You know, that's, I guess, 8 years ago now. It was much more about like IBUs. How bitter can this beer be? Things like Palate Wrecker from Green Flash were around. You know, some other ones I can't really think of right now. Some of the Lagunitas beers. But everything was very bitter. It was all about bitterness, and people were very obsessed with IBUs. I never enjoyed that drinking experience. So for me, hops are much more about flavor and aroma than they are about how bitter a beer can be. I think that's kind of stupid. And I think we see that now with the current kind of haze IPAs that are coming out. It's all about those like big aromatic, big flavor components you get from hops. Even the hops that are being grown now are much more about oil content. How tropical can they be, and not so much about the bittering compounds. So Belt's always been about that flavor and aroma. It's I'd say a moderately bitter beer. Just enough to really support that maltiness and to make it drinkable. Yeah, so very, very crisp beer. We use 4 hops in this one actually. We use Crystal, Eldorado, Amarillo, and Sultana. So Belt and Suspenders has, I would say, a pretty lighter malt build to it. So it's got a little bit of crystal malt in it, just enough to give it some of this, I'd say beautiful dark golden color. And it's got a little bit of Vienna malt, which is a European malt that's, again, got a little bit of flavor, a little bit of color, but it's all about the hops. So that 4-hop blend has a nice fruity note to it, has a nice, I guess, like a tropical note, but it's not too far. So you definitely know you're still drinking an IPA. It's got a little bit of that nice bitterness on the back of your tongue, just enough bitterness to make you want to have another sip. As I mentioned before, I think, while this beer was on like the forefront of what I call a Midwest IPA, being 8 years ago, with a little more fruit forward, not so bitter. The beautiful part about this beer is we never went so far that you're not going to realize it's an IPA. So I think a beer like this, after 8 years of being in the market, it's still our number one seller in the tap room. This is like an IPA I think you can count on. It's something that's never going to let you down. It's going to give you that beautiful hop note. It's going to give you that nice drinkability. And it's just, for us, it's like a standby go-to beer. And that's why it's the flagship. And that's why it's, when our sales guy is out at tastings and people say, hey, let me try the Buckle Down, they're always talking about this beer, about Belt and Suspenders. It's, in a lot of ways, it really is the beer that Buckle Down is all about. It's the working man's IPA, just like Buckle Down, I think, in a lot of ways, is the working man's brewery.